Welcome. Oh, wait. What is happening? Oh my god, everything's getting so cold. Ah! Whoa. Sorry, I don't know what that was. It got super cold. But anyway, welcome. I'm your host, Dustin. And today we're going to be talking about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. I went to an early screening due to a close friend that invited me. It was a public early screening here in Boston, and even though this film was on my radar, it wasn't like super like, yeah, I need to go see this Ghostbusters film. As much as I enjoyed the last one, Afterlife, I did enjoy that one. I thought, the characters were pretty funny. I thought the cast was well done. The ending of the movie kind of put a little bit of a weird taste in people's mouths with how things were created or certain characters that popped up in certain ways, which I get. This is a franchise that is pretty, I want to say it's held pretty close to people's hearts, especially the first Ghostbusters film. A lot of people say that Ghostbusters 2 is a superior film. I'm not one of those. I really, really enjoyed the first Ghostbusters film. The second one is fun, but as I was talking to my friend yesterday, and he really said something that I didn't really think of, but it makes a lot of sense now that I think back on it. Is that Ghostbusters 2 is essentially just Ghostbusters 1 remade with a different bad guy, really. But regardless, we're not here to talk about those ones. Maybe later this year we'll dive into all the Ghostbusters films. But yeah, this film, before we go into any kind of spoilers or anything that I want to highlight about this film, I just want to go over the plot, who's in it, and then I'll go over my general thoughts and maybe a couple of spoiler moments in here, and then we'll just see what happens. All right, so the plot goes as: when discovery of an ancient artifact unleashes an evil force, Ghostbusters, new and old, must join forces to protect their home and save the world from a second ice age. It sounds pretty sick. It sounds really, really cool. And we'll get into that in a second. But got a lot of the returning cast from the previous film. We have McKenna Grace playing Phoebe Spangler. Annie Potts comes back and replaces Melnitz. And then you got Carrie Coon, who plays Callie Spangler. Obviously, Paul Rudd coming back as Gary. And, you have Bill Murray. Patton Oswalt makes an appearance in here, too, which we'll definitely talk about that. And then you have Ernie Hudson coming back to be Zederman. We got Dan Aykroyd, which I love what they did for Ray in this film. I really, really do. And then you have William Atherton. Oh god, I'm awful with names, guys. Playing Walter Peck, who is the mayor essentially. And then we have, I'm pretty sure he is a returning member, is Podcast, played by Logan Kim. And then, there's some other people that are thrown in here. But the other guy I need to highlight, because he does play a pretty big part in this, is, I'm going to butcher his name, is Kumail Nanjiani. And he plays Nadim Razmadi. And he plays a pretty big part in this film. And we have Finn Wolfhard coming back to play Trevor Spangler. So, a lot of the returning cast, and I thought it was really, really fun. My overall thoughts, I'm just going to get into it. I don't really want to go over rankings and ratings and stuff right now because, the film's not out yet. I'll give you my rating at the end, but I'm not going to go through like IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes. I feel like it's disingenuous to go over and give scores for a film that only a select handful of people have seen so far. So my overall thoughts was, this was a very good kind of back to the basics Ghostbusters film, meaning that it did have some pretty tense moments. It went back to being more comical, because Afterlife I thought was way more of a coming to age, almost like sort of like a drama in a way. There wasn't really like a lot of comedic moments. I mean, there was when, you got the Stay Puft Marshmallows and other things that happened kind of towards the end of the movie, but it felt more of a serious toned film. And when you go to this one, they really amped up the jokes. They amped up the settings. I thought, a lot of the things that were said or done in this film were really, really good. I thought the cinematography was really, really good. There were a few moments that definitely I lost interest. So I will dock it at maybe a couple points for that. When a film makes me lose interest when they're trying to give me a plot or trying to drive a certain character to do something or to round out how they are, and I get dropped out of that, that's not good. But you go back and you see the old Ghostbusters to see what they're doing, and then you obviously hear with the new ones. The beginning of the film, it drew me in so fast because the setting and how things were lined up, I was like, this is going to be an awesome fucking movie. It was going to be great. And then, it was up until I got to some of those points where it dropped me out of. But overall, before I go into any specifics, which I'm going to do here in a minute, is I want to say, go see this film. Go see it. It's a great family film. If you love Ghostbusters, you're going to, I don't know if I'm going to say love, but you're going to like this film probably way more than Afterlife, in my opinion. Both me and my friend were like, this was a lot better than the last one. So I can only hope that it's going to go up from here. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and jump into a couple of spoilers. Some of these may not be spoilers because if you've seen the trailer, then you can already see some of these characters. But just as a heads up for anybody who doesn't watch trailers or anything like that, just skip this one if you want. But I'm going to say right now, if you need my first impressions of whether you should go see this or not, especially see it in the theater, yes, see this in the theater. The sound design I thought was really good. The music, it was a little above average, but it felt Ghostbuster-y, if you know what I mean. It's a really, really solid film for it being a new age Ghostbusters. If you're going into this thinking it's going to be like the first Ghostbusters film, that's never going to happen. And I have to hone that in here right now, is that's never going to happen. You cannot recapture that moment in that time and put that into a movie unless you're going to go back in time and figure out how they did this and just take that formula and keep going. But anyway, I'm going to count down, and then once we go into it, we're going to go into a couple of spoilers. So here we go. We're going to go 3, 2, 1. Boom. Spoiler zone. Okay, I want to talk about the opening of the film. I don't think this is really shown in any of the trailers, but then again, I only watched one trailer. The opening of this film was really cool. You essentially look at like the sky, and it's cracking thunder, and it's all gray. And then you find out that it's like back in, like, I think it said 1902, and you're looking at the police station back then, and there's firefighters and whatnot, and they go to this building, and it also says it was like in summer of 1902, and it's cold, and it's cracking thunder, and the sky, the skybox looked so cool, and that's what really drew me in. I'm like, oh my god, are we going to be getting some crazy effects in here? Are we going to be getting some like crazy, I don't know, just landscapes and visuals to look at? Yes and no. But yeah, they kind of go, and the firefighters get a call, and they have to go to this building, and they go upstairs, and they see that everybody's frozen. Everybody's frozen. And then you see somebody in the corner who is holding like an orb. And inside that orb, we get like zoomed into it, is like this giant creature, which I'm pretty sure the creature was called Garaka. I could be. I want to double check. I don't want to be wrong at all. Like, that's one thing I will hold against this too, is I don't remember who the bad guy was in this movie. 1 second. Ghostbusters, Frozen Empire, bad guy. Pretty sure it's Garaka. Yep, Garaka. Garraka is the new bad guy, and essentially he's like the keeper of ice, essentially, and that's when they said, to keep it from a second ice age, which that sounds really, really cool, but that never really seemed like the case. But anyway, you jump it through, you meet the group again, and you go and you see these other characters, and you meet Ray, which I really, really love what they did with this, because for those of you who don't know, Ghostbusters is Dan Aykroyd's baby. Like, this is a film that means a lot to him, because he and his father did a lot of paranormal investigation and stuff like that. I think there may have been a YouTube channel or a show that he did with his dad where he would go and investigate. So this was kind of a way of him putting what he does in real life into his actual work. And in this film, they really went into that, and he has a YouTube channel where he's investigating essentially like haunted objects, really. So then he uses one of the sensors to see if it's going to pick up anything, and he has podcast that's next to him, and he's recording all this, and if the object has nothing, then they slam the object, they kill it with the hammer, which is pretty funny. But to see that Ray in the film is really more into the paranormal more than he was when he was with the Ghostbusters was really, really cool, and I enjoyed that a lot. So they find the orb. A guy, Nadim, he drops off that orb at the store, and Ray, he senses it, and it legit breaks everything, and it freezes and goes through. So anybody who touches this orb, you essentially like freeze. And then while that's happening, we have the other side with that new Ghostbusters with Phoebe. They did a job at the beginning of the movie where they get sent into the mayor's office and essentially say that Phoebe can't partake in any of this because she's 15, so she's under the age of being able to work, and they're not paying her, blah, blah, blah. So we go into this arc with Phoebe of now feeling like she's an outcast, feeling like they don't want her to do anything, and that she feels way far away. So she stinks out one night and meets a ghost. I don't remember the ghost's name. I know that it was said, but I don't remember. I just know that it was a girl, and she said she was 16 or 17, and she died from a fire from her family, and how she's stuck here. They got together because Phoebe went to go play chess and saw that someone was moving the pieces, an invisible person, and when she materializes, she's like in fire. And that was like one of the parts that really started to lose me, is when this new ghost is in any of the conversations or anywhere. Like, I get this, it's just, I think how the audio was maybe balanced for the dialogue on these. It's very quiet. It's almost like they're whispering and they're just talking like this, very, very low. That it really lost me, and I was like, wait, what's going on? And then we find out later on that she kind of had not really sinister motives, but was essentially contacted by Garaka, who's in the orb, to get Phoebe to go to the new base, which this is another thing I want to highlight that I wish was used a little bit more, and I thought they were going to go further with it, is that Mitterman, he found a new place to hold ghosts because the ghost holder at the fire station was getting essentially filled. It was almost breaking. So they had to find a way and a solution to go and move the ghosts. So they go to this new facility, which is like an old aquarium where they can hold a lot more things. They can also test and remove spirits from haunted objects and put them into the holding cells, essentially. And they also have a couple of ghosts that are loose for observation. They have one that's called Possessor, where it's like a little red ball, and he's like bouncing around, and he can essentially possess anything. And Ray said he's like the most harmful of all of them because of what he can do. He's like sporadic. And then there's another one in the other like dark area. But I want to highlight that they don't really use the new facility for anything other than removing ghosts. It looked like a really cool setup, and I was like, oh, so we're going to be capturing a lot of ghosts and putting them into this new facility. Yeah, that doesn't really happen at all. But during this whole arc of, Ray investigating this orb, and they go to find out that it was essentially a fire master who can control these orbs because they have to go to the library. Ray takes Finn, who plays Spangler, and then Podcast. They go to the library with Ray, and they find Patton Oswalt, which, he's really, really funny in this. And he's like a historian that knows languages, and he works at the bottom of the library. So he brings them and tells them essentially the whole story. I'm not going to go over the whole thing. You guys can watch the movie and see what the story is. But they essentially find out who this person is, or what this entity is. And it's essentially the keeper of ice, and he can freeze things. And they had to use these fire masters, which is like firebenders, really, from Avatar. And these fire masters can trap them in this. Essentially, it's like an old ghost-busting trap. Sorry, my light just went out, which makes it even spookier. I like it. But they have to essentially find a fire master to get Garaka to stay, and they find Nadim, who he sells his stuff as his grandmother was a I guess a firebender or a fire master, and they find her chamber, blah blah blah, and now they have to train him to be like, you are the last line of defense for us because this thing is breaking out and gonna kill everything. So they have him train, which is really funny. There's a part where Venkman is like throwing pens at him, and they find out that he can control fire when he gets mad or anything like that, so they find out what he is. In the meantime, Phoebe is still connecting with this ghost, and she brings the ghost to the station. And then she goes into the basement, and you hear the ghost say, oh, I know what this is, because Phoebe's trying to tell her, which is like, okay, so either she heard it because she knows what the Ghostbusters are, or there's an ulterior motive as to why she knows what this is. And we find out later that Phoebe also wants to find out what it's like to be a ghost, to essentially materialize as one and turn into a ghost. So they go back to the new lab. Phoebe puts herself in the chamber and essentially sets a timer for 2 minutes where her body can be taking out. Well, her spirit can be taken out of her body, even though she's still alive, for 2 minutes, so she can be with her new friend. Which is also they're suggesting that they might be in love, which they should have just went into that instead of like beating around the bush. They definitely were tiptoeing on that because at one point it looked like they were going to kiss. So I was like, kind of like, yeah, let's do it. You're here, do it right now. But they never did, which I guess it's fine. Maybe it's because they were predicted as being young, so they didn't want to do that, which is fine. Yeah, so she gets out of her body, and then Ghost says, oh, I'm sorry. And Garaka, we now know, was trying to get Phoebe to do that so she could control Phoebe to say the words, which actually they do explain it. They say that a human has to do it, so that Phoebe, it was still connected to her body even though she was separated, but can still say the chant that was they did record at the library, got destroyed, but Garaka possesses her essentially to say the chant, which is weird because if you're out of your body, even though you have a 2-minute timer, I want to ask you, does that make sense? If you're taking yourself out of your body, that you're still able to use your old body? Does that make any sense? I was kind of scratching my head at that moment, but that's okay. So that Garaka gets released essentially, and then we go towards the end of the film. I'm going to jump a lot of things. There's a lot that kind of happens, but not really at the same time. But we go to the end where we're at, where Garaka is essentially here. He's freezing everything. He made a gigantic storm, and he wants to release all the old ghosts. So all the old and new Ghostbusters are together, and they find out that they can't use their proton packs because he can control it with, it's essentially fire, or he can freeze it and stop it. But for some reason, Phoebe was the only one that was like, oh, I can melt down copper, because they find out like what he can't really do is like copper and bronze were the two things that they can use against him, which is like what the balls were made out of, and also like the facility where he was held. So she melts down like a piece of the pole and only puts her pack in it, while the other people are just about. Me, I would have been like, everybody put your proton packs in it so that way we can use it. So she does that, comes to save the day, and Garaka can't control that. And then we have Nadim, who is now able to control fire, and he's, any moment he's in, I was cracking up. I thought everything he was saying was hilarious. Like he is the comedy in this film. He really, really is. So they finally get him, and they put him in a trap, which is the big trap. They essentially reverse and cleanse the trap in the basement to turn it into a giant sucking machine, and they suck him into the into it. And that's pretty much the film. I don't want to go over everything bit by bit, but those are some highlights that I want to do. And some of the things that bothered me was they didn't really use the facility that much to where I thought they were going to. I lost myself in a couple of moments with plot and getting to know why these things were happening. And also, it wasn't very climactic at the end. It kind of just happened. Garaka shows up, that's it. I feel like there could have been a way more of a big force or like a feeling happening, but that didn't really happen. But overall, since we're going to go and do my ranking right now, overall, I want to say, for me personally, it's about an 8 out of 10. If I'm holding all the other Ghostbuster films together, obviously the first one is a near 10 out of 10 for me. It actually might even be 10 out of 10. And all the other ones are kind of, they fluctuate from like a 7 to maybe even like a 9. But this one, I want to say, is an 8 out of 10. It's good. It is good. It's got some great things in it, especially going back to it being a comedy and it being not super serious, but it all has serious moments in it. And, they really do justice with the old Ghostbusters, I feel. And also creating a new world for the new Ghostbusters. But thank you, guys, for being here and listening to this. Sorry, my light blew out. Well, it didn't blow out. I think the thing I had it connected to just turned off, so I'm just blue right now, which looks kind of cool because this movie's about cold and whatnot. So thank you guys so much for listening to this. I hope you go check this out in theaters. Go support it. I was telling my friend, which I will say now is Alex, Brooke horror fan. He invited me over to the screening, and thank you so much, Alex, for being an amazing dude and for always giving me these sweet opportunities to go see movies early. Sometimes you're the greatest. I was saying to him that I think it'd be really cool, since they want to really revive and keep Ghostbusters going, that they should come back and bring back the animated series. Let's get some cartoons going, man. He even said, yeah, let's do like a live action one, which is like, okay, I guess I'm not opposed to that. But one thing I do want them to do, if they're going to be carrying this, is I want to see them like discovered there's actually other Ghostbusters around the world. We saw essentially in this one, we had Fire Masters like going back like thousands and thousands of years, but there's got to be other people in the world in the current timeline that they can go and be like, oh wow, I want to help these guys. Maybe not using the same equipment, but they are doing essentially the same thing. I want to see that. So please, let's get that going. Let's go see them meet other Ghostbusters around the world or whatever it may be. But thank you guys so much for being here. This is a short review. I'm non-spoiler at the beginning, spoiler at the end. My final review is an 8 out of 10. Go check it out and let me know what you think about the film when you see it this weekend down below. Thank you guys so much. See you on the next one.